I'm gonna turn the sound up.
And actually, I see him in the audience there.
All right.
There you go.
All set, Kelly, Carrie.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting for January 21st, 2025. My name is Carrie Martinek, Chair of the Planning Board. Before we get started, I have a few announcements to read. This open meeting of the planning board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the planning board are allowed to encourage to participate remotely. The act allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded to the public so the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. To confirm access, members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Amy Pratsky?
Yes.
Anthony Zaitin?
Here.
Bill Pierce?
Here.
Millie Milton?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lori Connors?
Here.
Great. Ground rules for the meeting. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to make their phone or to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board will be conducted by roll call. For public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. By phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Please note part of your phone number will be visible. By Zoom, click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford approximately 3 minutes for comment. This evening, we'll have executive session, which we will enter into at the adjournment of this meeting. No additional notes there. Otherwise, let's get started with the agenda. So first on the agenda tonight, we have continuation of the consideration of the application for a common driveway special permanent site plan approval in the residential district as residential A district for 3, 7, and 11 Reservoir Street, map 42, parcels 51, 52, and 53, submitted by the estate of Robert Romeo. The proposed common driveway will serve 3 proposed single-family homes. So there is no testimony this evening regarding this case. The board will need to vote to continue without testimony to February 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Is that what was agreed upon, Laurie, 6 p.m. in the request, or?
Yes, that's correct. We received an email from the design engineer.
Yep, so wants to meet with, he has a meeting with Concon coming up and wants to hold till after that. So the next meeting that makes sense is February 18th. Is there a motion to continue the public hearing to February 18th at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, Amy? Anthony?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Millie?
Aye.
And carries an aye. The hearing will be continued to the 18th. We have 1 minute until our next hearing, which is posted for 6:05. So we're just going to let the clock roll for a minute here. I'll get resituated with the public hearing notice to read when it is 6:05. We'll just go with awkward silence until then. And actually, while we're waiting, I'm going to bring in the attendees. Looks like Bob will bring him on. Bob, do you have others joining you tonight?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Yep. Do you have anyone else in the audience I should bring over?
No, it's just me tonight. Mr. Romeo is out of town.
Okay, no problem. Before we get started, it is now 6:05, so I'll read the public hearing notice for the record. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 48, Section 9, the Northborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on January 21st, 2025 at 6 p.m. So I guess we didn't have to wait, but that's okay. To consider the scenic road application submitted by James Romeo for 3, 7, and 11 Reservoir Street, map 42, parcels 51, 52, and 53 in the residential A zoning district. The applicant seeks approval within the limits of the road right-of-way to remove approximately 60 feet of a partially disturbed stone wall and 2 trees of 4 inches or greater caliper in order to construct a three-lot common driveway. Pursuant to Chapter 2, the Acts of 2023, an act relative to studying certain COVID-19 measures adopted in a state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. To participate in the public comment portion of the public hearing, please click on the URL posted on the agenda to join. This application is on file at the town clerk's office and planning department and may be viewed on the planning board webpage at the town of Northborough webpage under planning board, projects under review. Okay, with that, why don't we get started with this application? So thanks for joining, Bob. Is there something that you'd like to present this evening?
Tonight we have before the planning board a request for permission to construct the driveway at the location shown on the plans that we have been reviewing previously. There is a couple of small trees in there. One's kind of fallen down. It's just to the east of the Horgan property on Reservoir Street. There is kind of the remains of a stone wall. It's not really a pristine stone wall, but it's kind of overgrown with scrub and maybe some bittersweet. So in order for us to proceed with our common driveway permit, we need permission from the planning board to construct the roadway in this location, and Reservoir Street in this section is deemed as scenic road. So that is why we are here tonight.
Okay. Lori, any comments from you? It seems like up in the air is possible conditions for no more than 2 trees should be removed within the limits of the road right away. And any stones removed to accommodate the common driveway should be kept on site and used to repair the existing stone wall along the frontage of the parcel. Is there anything you want to add to that or comment on?
No, I thought that that would be a good use of the stone walls that'll at the portion of the stone wall that would be removed. As Bob had mentioned, the wall isn't in great shape. It's kind of falling down. So if he could rebuild the contractor could rebuild the stone wall and replenish the stones with those that exist in the driveway location, I thought that that would be a good compromise.
Okay, any questions from the board? So my only question is, there are still some approvals up in the air. There's obviously the one here getting continued next month, and then there's a meeting with Concom. Are there any approvals that would possibly change this permit or something? If it were to change along the way, what action, anything that would need to be taken, action by the planning board, or I'm just trying to think through that a little bit, Lori. If that's even a problem.
If the common driveway permit was not approved, then he would have to build 3 separate driveways. So I would imagine he would have to come back at that point. You folks would have to consider what he should do in that case. So there would be more disturbance, obviously, more trees removed. And it looks like the stone wall is mostly along this lot. So the other 2 lots, it doesn't look like there would be disturbance to stone walls. It would just be 2 trees.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
A quick question, Lori. I know it says in the, we're gonna have a condition if we approve it, that what you mentioned, that he has to rebuild the wall. Is that a condition that can be upheld, like say with the occupancy permit? Like what would hold someone to doing I know it would be a condition, but if it's a condition on the scenic driveway, then they have to do it. Is that what holds them to it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hinge it on to the occupancy permit, certainly for the house that will be situated on that lot, then I would think that that would be appropriate.
So Laurie, quick question. When you say rebuild the stone wall, would you be thinking of like doing a return section, like 10 feet up into the lot? Is that what you mean by rebuild the wall? Because it won't get
Yeah.
rebuilt with, it doesn't get rebuilt when we're driving through the opening.
Yeah, what I was thinking is that you would use the stones to rebuild the wall where it's kind of like deteriorated, where it's like fallen over.
Yep.
So that at the end of the day, there should be a more substantial wall than what exists today. Now, if you end up, the contractor ends up replenishing the wall, rebuilding it, and then there are extra stones, then I would think that it'd be perfectly appropriate to do a return. I think that would be like a nice, fancy
Entryway.
egress for the common driveway.
Okay.
I know one scenic bylaw application we had before, it actually did call out like the number of feet, like how many feet is there now, how many is being destroyed by the driveway, and how much has to go back.
It's 60 feet that's being altered by this construction. So I don't think all of the 60 feet is for the driveway itself. Probably some of it is for the basin. Am I correct?
So actually, no, the basin is going to be on our property. The 60 feet is more or less with the curb radiuses. So if we had a 20-foot wide driveway and we're 5 or 10 feet outside of that for the wall, I would say breaking through the wall, if there was a good wall, it would be about 40 feet. 60 feet would be with the curb returns, with the radiuses as we enter onto Reservoir Street, but that's not where the wall is. You know what I mean? The wall is 5 or 6 feet away from the edge of pavement.
So in other words, it's going to be less than 60 feet of wall disturbed.
Correct.
Okay.
Actual wall disturbance, I would say 40 feet. It's just, I was looking more at the disturbance within the right of way. With the trees, etc. A little bit of grading, regrading.
I can correct that on the draft decision.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure the draft decision actually spells out what you're actually looking for, like quantitatively,
Makes sense, correct.
because we all might have different opinions.
And certainly I defer to you folks. I mean, I was thinking that the first priority would be to rebuild the wall along the rest of the frontage. But if you folks think it's more important for him to create like a return, then certainly I can put that in the decision.
I don't really do board members have a preference on that?
I don't. If it was one over the other, I'd say rebuild the wall over the returns, I think.
Can they not do both?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So between the driveway and the Hawkins, I think rebuilding the wall would make sense. I don't know how much further the wall goes on the east side, so I'm thinking it only goes about another 20 feet, but I guess if we could look at it in the field, I don't know. I guess we could definitely rebuild between the proposed driveway and the Hawkins property. Because they have a nice stone wall. They have a good stone wall. And then we come to an opening, and then I don't know. I don't think there's much more than another 20 or 30 feet of decent wall existing.
So, but for stone wall and other on the property of somebody else, another property owner, how does that work? We wouldn't just assume that we could rebuild something without, like, I just don't know how that works when it's
Oh,
another.
we wouldn't need to go on their property. The
We
wall
would or
is,
would not?
we would not,
Oh, okay, okay.
Their
got it.
wall is intact. Their wall is intact and in good shape. It's about 3 feet high.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like rebuilding the wall is the top priority from
Okay.
the board. Is that true?
Over the returns, but I wish we had a picture of what's there now and what we're thinking. Like, what is there right now?
I can bring up a picture if you like. I can stop
Oh,
sharing
sure.
and
That'd be
Sure.
great.
so just bear with me while I do that.
I just think for the applicant and for us to have something quantitatively, how many feet he has to do, or else we're just saying rebuild the wall, but we don't even know what's there right now. At least I don't.
All right, I can see it's pretty obscured by lots of vegetation, but this is what I've got. So you can't really see it so much.
Yeah.
At
Is it
all.
behind there?
Yeah.
Can't see a wall at all. Can you go to where it connects to the neighbors? You said the neighbors had a wall.
I believe it's on this side.
Hmm.
Maybe this is.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
So that's the uphill side of their driveway. That's about 20, that's about 30 feet, 40 feet from our entryway going to the left. Our
Yeah.
entryway is to the left of that. So
I'm sorry, I have
I
to
thought
step
I
away.
took a picture of the trees. I thought I took a picture of the trees that are there. I do. How can I get this? I got a picture of my phone. I'm not sure how to get it to you.
Do you want to email it over to Lori from your phone or text it maybe?
Yeah, can I text it, Laurie, real quick?
Oh, she
What
might
can
have.
I?
Looks like she's
She's doing something.
might be doing something there.
Yeah, 'cause I took a picture of the tree that's half broken. I don't think I have Laurie's cell.
Or if you just email it to the planning board. Um, do you have the address, the board address there?
Let me,
Or you can just send it to me.
Okay, you are back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
can I text you to Laurie? Laurie, can I text it? Sometimes my phone
No.
doesn't like to email, no? Okay.
No, I'm on my laptop, so that
Okay.
won't help. If you could send it to lconnors@town.northborough.ma.us.
Yep, you're in my phone, yep.
Got it?
You did get it? All right.
Yeah, so let me just open it, make sure it's,
So
oh, here we go.
that's actually a fairly recent photo.
All right, so I'm just gonna share this. So is this one of the trees that you're talking about?
No, that's a small tree. So the one that's broken there, that's a like a 12-inch tree that's snapped.
Mm,
The telephone pole should be maybe 2 feet to the right of the wall, so
Okay.
the wall is not really visible. You'd have to go pull away some of the brush in order to see the wall, I think.
I
The
think you can
mirror,
see a
I
little
think,
bit
is,
off to the left of where the mirror is there.
yeah,
you
Behind,
might see,
same level of the mirror to the left. You
Yep.
can see a bit of the wall back there.
and that's where it's in
Background.
disrepair?
um, yeah, I mean, I think there's a wall there. It's just not
Yeah,
the same as what I would call a scenic road wall, that's all.
right, right,
So you can see across the street more?
right.
So the neighbor, I think, built that wall. I think the neighbor built that wall. That's not an old farmer's wall. That thing's only like 18 inches high. But the Hoggins wall is what I would call a scenic road wall.
Yeah,
So if we would, I guess if we would limit the reconstruction of the wall to that pole, I think that would be fair.
yep,
Because after that pole, the mirror is for the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Orr, Miss Orr. When she backs out of her driveway, I think that's what that round mirror is for.
mm-hmm,
So reconstruction of the wall from the Hoggins to that pole would be fair, a fair for the applicant, and I think fair for the planning board and the town.
Far from the pole is the driveway, your driveway.
So the pole is, because let me grab my scale for a minute and we will.
I can pull
The
up
pole
that
is about,
plan.
the pole is about 25 feet from the left side of the east side of our entrance, the east side, the left, which would be the Crawford Street side of the opening, 25 feet, let's say. And then to the Hoggins property. So the total from the pole to the Hoggins is about 70 feet.
Oh.
Total. So that, which kind of coincides with the 60 feet, I guess.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, that sounds fair then. That's 70 feet a wall.
Well, 70 feet of wall minus the opening, yeah. Minus the opening that we need for the driveway.
mm-hmm.
Which is what, 20, 25 feet, 24?
I would say 25 would be 25,
Right.
26 feet for the opening would be fair, I guess, for a 20-foot wide driveway pavement.
So I have my arrow on top of the telephone pole.
So that's pole number 3 there?
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
And that's the pole that had the mirror on it in the picture.
right, right, okay.
Where's the driveway, Lori? Or where to the left of that?
Mm,
Yes, this
Yeah.
is the driveway opening right here.
mhm,
Mhm.
So that spot elevation, that 388.5, that's the grade at the center line of the driveway.
mhm.
So there are 2-foot shoulders on either side. So that's a total of 24 feet.
So would we leave the wall out of the easement area, the 30-foot easement? Would we leave the wall out of that area?
Oh,
Just as a question, I guess.
Mm,
so the easement area is 30 feet.
Correct.
The wall would be 30 feet back from the wall, from the road?
No,
The
it would
wall,
be
no, the wall is about
30
7 or
feet
8
wide.
feet off the edge of pavement.
So the
Okay.
easement for the paved width of the common driveway is 30 feet wide.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just want to ask one more time. The wall's gonna go to pole 3 or pole 2? Except
Pole
for the
3.
driveway.
Pole 3. So we'll rebuild the wall from pole 3 to the Hawkins property, except for the easement opening, let's say. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Does that make sense to the board?
Now, what would be the height of the wall, and would you have to bring in more material?
I think we'll have plenty of rocks. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would say 3 feet high. 36 inches high is typically, you can't really step over them. You have to get on them to get over. So 36 inches is like an average for these walls.
Do you have extra rock? Will you keep going versus up the driveway?
Return up the driveway, you mean?
No, instead of returning up the driveway, would you say you had more rocks because of the driveway opening? Would you just keep going? Just use the rocks that you have?
Oh, a long continuous straight line, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, a lot of it got with the state did a widening there when they there's actually a portion of a state layout in there. So after we go about 40 feet to the east of the pole, that becomes state layout. That's part of the state layout for 290. So
I
I
think the
would hate
purpose-
I would hate to have ask my client to rebuild a wall that's not there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's I think
Maybe
I was
just-
I was trying to define the limits of what would make sense
Right.
on my end, I guess.
Yeah, maybe just use the rocks to repair whatever is there now. Right? Not have to build anything new.
Mhm.
Correct.
Which would be a condition, so that works.
Yep.
Okay, anything else from the board on this? All right, and Lori, are you clear on any edits that we need to make based on this conversation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
So you want me to clarify that it should be, the limit of the reconstruction will be from the property line with the now are formerly owned by the Horgans to pole number 3. And the height of the wall should be 36 inches.
Does that sound right to everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I want to open up the floor for any comments from the public. If you have a comment, I'm gonna pull you in now. Let's see. Looks like Tracy and Michael, just your name and address, please. Oh,
Hi,
Laura,
this-
you're
yeah,
still
this
sharing-
is,
hold on one second, Laura, you're still sharing your screen, by the way.
Yep, and also I got an email from Bob Licht saying that he's trying to get in, so I'm gonna send him my login. He's having trouble.
Oh, Bob,
Light.
Licht- Or Light, yeah, sorry, I mispronounced it.
okay. Okay, so I'm sorry, Tracy and Michael, to interrupt you there. Just your name and address, please.
Hi, yeah, this is Michael Horgan. My wife Tracy is with me. We're at 17 Reservoir Street, just the neighbors that Bob Printe was referring to. I have just a comment and then just a couple of questions to clarify because I'm a little confused on a few things. But the first is that I do think that the scenic roads bylaw does add, the scenic roads themselves do add a lot of character to the town of Northborough. And I know there are other towns that have scenic roads, and I think they do offer a great asset to the community. I do wish, and I know this isn't really the purview of the board, but I do wish that I have seen other towns like Sutton and a few others that have actually just below the street name they have a little sign that says scenic roadway. And I think it would be great if the town could just, designate by having a sign on such roads that do say scenic roads. I think it would add to the character of the town. The questions, so that's that's my feelings on the scenic roads. But the question I have is I'm still a little confused on where the wall that's partially that's going to be altered or removed or rebuilt. You're talking just the wall that's parallel to Reservoir Street. Is that correct?
So
Correct.
that's correct. Does anyone?
Yes,
wanna-
it's the scenic roadway that is associated with Reservoir itself. So it's along the frontage of Reservoir Street.
Okay, so it's along the frontage. That's what I wanted. That's what I wasn't sure of as well, because there is also a wall between our property and the property that they're developing, and I didn't know if this wall was involved with that either. So sounds like that's not part of this. So that makes a lot of sense. I do support rebuilding the wall, and I think the priority really, in my opinion, should be the wall that's directly parallel to the road, and not necessarily the return. I can say that years and years ago, before Reservoir Street was even designated as a scenic road, John Chunder, who was then the DPW director, was doing some road work on that on Reservoir Street, and he spent a lot of time. He himself physically rebuilt some pretty big stretches of wall on Reservoir Street. I mean, he was lifting the rocks himself. I was amazed at his age and his ability to lift some of these rocks. And so I think in keeping with that nature, rebuilding the wall that's directly on the roadway should take priority as opposed to the return, which does offer some, niceties to the homeowners, but not necessarily to the community at large. So that's what my feeling is as far as you can go. And I can assure you, as Bob had mentioned, you will not find, and I know this for 100% certainty, and living on the parcel next door, you will find no shortage of rocks to work with. Absolutely, there are plenty of rocks to do any kind of rebuilding on the property itself. Those are my thoughts.
I just wanted to ask an additional question that's not related to the stone walls, but is related to the trees that are going to be removed that are larger than 4 inches in diameter. I understand one of them has already been felled and one of them is partial, but is there a plan for those trees to be replaced with like-sized trees somewhere on the scenic roadway? Because there's obviously, that's part of the roadway bylaw. I'm just trying to understand that portion of this request.
So to my knowledge, I only see the removal. Is there any part of the plan for planting trees or?
So I think as part of the common driveway application, Laurie had asked for some planting along the proposed detention pond area. So if the planning board were to look for a couple trees, I think that would be an area to add a couple of trees. I just don't think we had discussed that yet. So, because the trees that are there are pretty much falling down, but I don't think it would be unreasonable to plant a couple more trees on the other east side of pole 2, where we're going to be proposing some low shrub area plantings for the detention pond as part of the common driveway.
Okay, so maybe when we come back on the 18th and look at it, we can see like the full picture. So we know, what is there for landscaping in entirety and think about it at that time. Does that make better sense, Laurie, to kind of look at it in totality there?
Yeah, I think so. So then we can see how much room. I know that the DPW director always wants street trees to be placed on private property instead of within the road right of way. So then, of course, he doesn't have to worry about them falling over into his road and taking them down. So I am sure that would be his preference.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
If I could, sorry, this is the last I really.
No, it's no problem.
I know you guys have your own way that things are done, and again, I'm coming into this as a newbie, but it would be helpful to me as an abutter in these kinds of conversations when we're talking about land disturbances, changes that are going to be made, to actually be able to not only see on the plan, have it highlighted or something, but also to have some pictures of what's there. What Lori showed with Google Maps was fine, but it seems that it would be helpful to have some actual documentation of what's existing, as there's a discussion of what's going to happen in the future, so that everybody is on the same page and understands the situation on the ground.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think with a certain level there that is required to provide a current state. I think it all depends on the application. Is that true, Laurie, in certain cases?
Yeah, in this case, of course, he's already submitted plans for the common driveway. If it was to be somebody who is just building a single home, then chances are the plans that we would get would be much more sketchy in nature. But yeah, it kind of runs the gamut as to what people submit to us.
But it's a great point to be able to see that visually for sure, even for the board. Okay, anything else?
Going forward, maybe some plans the board can do a site walk, like the ZBA does a site walk. And it's almost easier to go and see it than try to,
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for your
Looks
comment.
like somebody else has a question. I think that might be Bob trying to come in. Under 223, under
Oh,
Lori.
yeah. Is that okay? I'm gonna bring in the phone number with the last 3 digits, 223, just your name and address.
Hi, this is Bob Light,
Hi.
48 Emerson Road.
Oh, okay, so we have 2. All right, so I see you. This is
Okay.
your phone. Hold on. I'm gonna remove you here because I think it's creating a echo. Okay, so Bob,
Right.
we got you. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm sorry, just your name and address one more time.
Yeah, thank you, Lori, for getting me in. For some reason, I think the link that you had on the agenda might have been an old link, possibly. But in any event, I definitely concur that the stone wall should be rebuilt. By the way, I'm the chair of the Historic District Commission. So, and I agree with Lori's position. It does sound like it would actually be an improvement to the road to rebuild the stone wall. And I assume the stone wall is greater than 15 linear feet. Is that correct? The existing stone wall?
Well, it goes in various locations up Reservoir Street. But in this location, it's kind of spotty.
Okay, because the bylaw only discusses anything greater than 15 linear feet. And I thought I heard someone say it was 60 linear feet. So in any event,
That's what he put in his application as would be impacted by the common driveway construction. And then he clarified during his presentation that it would really only be 40 linear feet of disturbance.
okay. Well, I would just not take up much of our time, but I would definitely support a rebuilding of the stone wall. Thank you.
Bob, I actually have a question for you if I could ask, is how is a stone wall designated as historic if we don't have an age on it? Because we're not provided with anything like that.
I don't believe the bylaw requires that it be historic. It's just part of it. There is historic nature to a scenic drive. In this particular case, it doesn't necessarily link the stone wall to being historic, but I'm just putting in my 2 cents because.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I was just
because
curious
a
if
stone wall,
if there was a need to look through deeds and see, yes, the stone wall existed this many years ago. I wasn't sure. I was just curious.
No, I'm not aware of that. But I do think that a stone wall contributes to the scenic drive.
100%. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for joining, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have another hand up. I have, let's see, Lisa Orr. I'm going to bring you in to talk. Just your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Lisa Orr. I'm at 6 Reservoir Street across the way from this driveway. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
anyway, I also am in support of that stone wall. I walk up and down that street all the time and love it. And yes, I did build a stone wall myself. Not very,
Mhm.
you know. Let's see. And my question is, and this might not be the right committee, but maybe a lot of the stone walls and a lot of the just any kind of fences or walls are just rife with like poison ivy and bittersweet, especially in this area. I think part of the reason you can't see that stone wall is it is absolutely covered in those things.
Mhm.
And I guess I wonder, am I the only one who rips that stuff out and does it very carefully and tenaciously? I feel like it would be much more scenic without all of the bittersweet, which is non-native and felling the trees all by itself across the street from me. So I guess this may or may not be the right place for it, but it sort of is entwined into the stone wall, so I thought I'd ask.
Okay, does DPW take care of that, or is it private, or the stone walls?
It's my understanding that DPW will take care of it in select locations. So particularly if it ends up impeding sight distance,
Mhm.
then they'll take care of it. But I know I've listened to Scott complain. Well, actually, people have complained about how the DPW manages the bittersweet. And what they say is that they don't do it the proper way, and so ultimately it ends up spreading the bittersweet. So, I know they take care of the vegetation primarily as a public safety issue, not to eradicate invasives. So I guess in answer to your question, it's probably best if the homeowners take care of it themselves. Especially if it isn't in a priority location, in intersection where sight distance is impeded.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
right. Thank you.
thanks, Lisa.
Mhm.
Okay, I think, so I originally thought this was Bob, but I'm gonna just make sure. So the last three digits of the number are 223, if you'd like to make a comment. I can't tell if, yeah.
My name is John Mazzola. I'm at 382 Crawford Street. So I bought the property. I just wanted to voice favor, whatever they're trying to put there, I think is a good thing. It'll improve the site on Reservoir Street. It'll improve that stone wall and it'll improve everything that goes on between the two properties. So just wanted to voice my opinion that I think it's a good thing. We've been here 25 years and I've been abutting the property for that long too. So I run by it every day or every weekend, and I think the stone wall being uncovered or what needs to be done will be a good improvement. So,
Okay, great. Thanks for your comment. Grab a handful of bittersweet if you can.
yeah, there's plenty along here for everybody.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments from the public at this time? Okay, I don't see any. Any additional board comments? And sorry, Bob, you were I put you on mute for a second just when people were talking because I heard some shuffling, but you're welcome to speak up as well.
Okay, I just unmuted.
Okay. Any additional comments from you?
No, I think the board's requests are reasonable, and I still have to come up with those plantings along the detention pond, so I will think about adding at least 2 trees to replace the ones that need to take down.
Okay, so at this time, we have a couple of conditions that we already discussed. Is everybody clear on the conditions at this point?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further comment, then I will ask for a motion to approve the scenic bylaw application for the approval to remove approximately 60 feet of partially disturbed stone wall and 2 trees of 4 inches or greater in order to construct a 3-lot common driveway. The motion is with conditions, are they listed A and B or 1 and 2? I just close it up. Or let's see. A and B. So to approval with conditions A through B.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Anthony,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
and Amy?
Aye.
And carries an eye. Okay, great. So that passes. And Bob, we'll see you back on February 18th.
All right, and Laurie, I will get you those revised plans pretty quick, next day or two.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, next on the agenda, we have an A&R for 0 Hudson Street, condition, creation of 1 additional lot. Is there someone here speaking to that at all, Laurie, or?
Steve Corvo.
Okay, great. I'll bring Steven. And I see you had some additional comments, I think, on this in general.
So with the A&R,
Oh, Josh had some comments.
yeah, Josh had some comments. They did meet the approval criteria, from my opinion. I'm gonna bring up the plan for you now so you can see it. I did speak with Steve about the fact that this is also a scenic road. And so therefore, he also needs to comply with the scenic road bylaw. So as you can see, this is one large lot that is proposed to be subdivided into 2 lots. So the newly created lot is lot 1. There are no wetlands on the property. There are some wetlands off-site. And they do meet the minimum frontage requirements as well as the minimum lot size requirements. So of course, there is access to the buildable portion of the parcels, both parcels. Howard Street should be sufficient to handle the traffic from 2 additional homes. And there is, like I said, sufficient frontage.
Okay. Steve, is there anything you wanted to add? I just saw your hand up, but maybe you're just indicating you were part of the application.
Exactly. That's what I was doing. And yeah, so I don't have any specific questions or comments unless you guys have any for me.
Okay, so Lori, we got in this letter from Josh, I don't know if we typically get this level of review. Is it something to flag anything, or just as a matter of including in the overall files?
Yeah, so normally what happens is that, of course, Fred would do a review, Bob would do a review, and I would do a review. And if there were any issues, we would speak about it amongst themselves. And Josh, of course, he's relatively new. And he has been asked to do review letters for the other applications for both ZBA and planning board. So I think he was thinking that this is the level of review you folks would.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. I'm glad it was nice you went the extra mile. So I was just wondering, was there a reason? It looked like everything was actually, his comments were all, didn't really flag anything that was something to fix. So did everyone get a chance to read Josh's comment letter?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was helpful, I thought.
Yeah, it was actually really helpful. Any comments or questions on this A&R?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. Then is there a motion to endorse the A&R for 0 Hudson Street?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Amy?
Aye.
Millie?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And carries an aye. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a discussion of bylaws for annual town meeting. I think our primaries here are are we prepared to look at the inclusionary bylaw at this time, or do we still need to sort through? Okay. Is this something, do you want me to share this, Lori, or?
I have one version ready to go if.
Okay, great.
Okay, so just bear with me. So this version that I'm gonna pull up has Amy's comments. So
Okay.
this is her latest version. So let me make sure I'm opening up. I've got all of the different bylaws ready to go. So I believe this is the latest and greatest, and some of them, she had asked some questions that I responded to in an email, and I forwarded that to you.
Yes.
But anyway, this is kind of a complicated bylaw. Of course, we start out with the purpose and intent. Does anybody have any questions or any suggested changes on the purpose and intent?
I did notice down there that I looked up today and livable can be spelled both ways. I'm down under definitions, but I thought livable was ABLE, and then I double checked it again and they said you can spell it either way.
Okay,
I
good.
thought that was
'Cause
funny.
your version looked a little funny to me, so I'm like, oh.
The first one that looked funny to me, so which is why I looked it up. And my first Google said it was the way I put it. And then I double checked today and it said it could be either way.
Well, so we're both right. That's always
Right.
nice. Okay, so Amy had suggested that we include a number of definitions. So I did include those for the most part. I think there might have been a little wordsmithing here and there, but for the most part, they're what Amy had suggested.
Most of them, just to point it out, I took it from the state definition and I looked at Medway, Shrewsbury, and Westboro, because Westboro just did theirs. So it was just, I think Lori did a great job. But I always like to look at our local, like our area neighbors and what they've done and what the state has done. So I just tried to, there were just things because of that. My comments. I just didn't pull them out of the air.
So applicability, so Amy and I went back and forth about applicability a little bit. So the districts that I chose were the districts that allow residential uses. So I did not include districts that don't allow residential uses. For example, the industrial district and the highway business districts. And the reason for that is because they wouldn't allow new development anyway, unless it was under a Chapter 40B scenario. And under a Chapter 40B scenario, of course, they have to require, provide 20% affordable housing. So it was kind of moot. So that was the rationale for what I had included. Originally, I did not include the residential open space planning overlay district because the underlying district was a residential district, I believe residential B. But Amy suggested including it, and I thought that for clarity's sake, it certainly wouldn't hurt. So I put it in there.
It just did an update where it said in all applicable districts, only because I thought it was simpler than calling out the different districts in case our districts change, like highway business changed last year. And I did see it called out that way in a different town. But since we do have a use variance, couldn't a development go into an industrial district and then we would want to catch it?
That would be a use variance, and I would think that would be part of the negotiation process. So, like we were talking about before the ZBA, the assisted living development, they just recently asked for a use variance to do a senior living development instead of assisted living. And I had suggested as part of that negotiation that they provide affordable housing. So I guess in that circumstance, I think it would be confusing to list districts that don't allow residential development typically. because then people are gonna ask me, well, why did you say the industrial district when housing isn't allowed in the industrial district? Like, I think that
Hmm.
that would be one of those one-off scenarios where already when they're asking for a use variance, they're asking for something that is different than what is already allowed. So it gives the ZBA a lot of discretion to negotiate if it was a project that they supported.
What if we wrote including those included by use variance, just to call it to their attention? Because didn't the person with the use variance that you were just talking about in front of the ZBA, he said, well, it's not written in your bylaws, so I don't have to do it. So he didn't want to do the affordable housing.
Yes, and then the ZBA told him that they were not supportive of his use variance, so he just withdrew it today. There's
mean,
that.
yeah. Think about it. I just didn't want something to get overlooked because where we're gonna go under the 10% if it's a big development. And there aren't a lot of big parcels left, but the areas with the big parcels would be an industrial parcel, like the baseball. That would be industrial, although now it's Highway Business Southwest. I just didn't want a big parcel to fall through the cracks that would drop us down below 10%.
I just think that the vast majority of the time, it's gonna be a chapter 40B development. So instead of it being 15% affordable, it's gonna be 20% affordable or 25% affordable.
Yeah.
So I would encourage them, if they want to do a housing development, then the better route for them to go for the benefit of the town of Northborough would be 40B, because the town would ultimately get a larger share of affordable housing than if they use this bylaw.
I agree. I just don't know if they would want to go 40B because that would be 25%.
I would encourage them, because otherwise they would be going contrary to the zoning. So the zoning says the highest and best use is industry or, highway commercial. It's not housing. So I think that's kind of where the pre-application negotiation goes, where I would just say, hey, if you want to do housing and this is the zone that you want to do housing in, then this is the path you follow. And then the benefit of that is, of course, the greater share of affordable housing.
As long as you never leave us.
That's
You left.
what I was thinking.
Because
I
the
was
next
actually-
planner wouldn't know that, if
Right.
it wasn't in the bylaw.
I think to Amy's point, though, I think the other thing we need to maintain here is intent, right? It sort of shows what the intent here in Northborough is by having it in there.
Okay, so I'll put a little, oh, shoot. Oh, I gotta enable editing here. I'm just gonna type alongside. Use variance. Okay. All right, I'll make that change. So then when we go down to 10, any division of land for the development of 10 or more dwelling units. I know that there are a number of communities that do fewer than 10, but my concern is housing practice in Northborough today is to build very few units. So most of the units that are built, and of course, over the last several years, we've been averaging anywhere from 6 to 12 units per year. And most of those are built either on common driveways or they just scattered houses. So it might be an A&R lot. So one single family home over here, maybe there's a duplex over there. And then the combination of all those units yields very few units. So we haven't had a large development in a very long time. So of course, if you remember last year when we were considering the MDOD bylaw, we had that feasibility study done, and what they determined is that if a project has 10 dwelling units or more at a density of 15 units per acre, then it is economically feasible to set aside 15% for lower moderate income households. So that's where the 10 came from. I'm just concerned because we have some very, very large lots in town. So a large number of our districts are, 40,000 square feet, 80,000 square feet. And those are very, very expensive lots. So the land prices in Northborough are very, very high. So I'm trying to keep us realistic because we want to actually create affordable housing, or I believe that's the purpose of this bylaw. So we don't want to make it so impossible that nobody will ever use this bylaw. So 10, we already know because of that economic feasibility study that 10 works. And then as we go further down the bylaw, you will see that I put in some density bonus incentives. It's not 15 units per acre, but it would help, I think. And there is also some loosening of the types of housing that would be allowed, but that's further down the list. So that's where I'm saying 10 or more dwelling units. My fear is if we make it 5, then we will never see 5 units ever built. People will build 4 and call it a day.
Right.
I mean, it's great from a growth management standpoint, but not if the goal is to create any affordable housing.
Yeah, no, I think, for now, I think that makes sense, especially because you have that backup, you have that data. However, I would think that, the economy changes, right? And so, we've got to keep that in mind as well going forward. So this number might have to change, say, 5 or 10 years from now. But this is probably a good place to start.
I mean, this might seem like a silly question, but why on number 2, why is it always considered a division of land? Is it not possible that you might put 2 or 3 parcels together and put a multi-use or multifamily development on that?
Well, that's number 1.
Oh, wait.
So number 1 would be a net increase of 10 or more dwelling units. So what I was trying to think of is all of the possibilities for development. So there may be somebody who's interested in doing what you just said,
Okay, I see.
and they would be under number 1. And then number 2 would either be a subdivision or it would be an A&R development.
Yeah, okay.
And then, of course, number 3 is an assisted living facility. And then number 4 is trying to be clever.
Yes. Yeah.
And try and figure out what the developers are going to do to try and get around
Yeah. Yeah.
this
Okay.
bylaw. And then number 5 is exemptions. So Amy had a good suggestion to talk about buildings that are damaged or destroyed by fire. Of course, they should be exempted from this provision. And then we already had an inclusionary zoning provision within our multifamily development overlay district. I think everybody agrees that we don't want to modify that district when we just passed it last year.
No.
So the smartest thing to do is just to exempt it, since it's already covered in that district.
Okay. I didn't read that part the right way then. Okay.
too. I
any-
just changed a couple of the words, like held in common ownership on or after the effective date.
Yeah, I'm fine with those changes. Anything else? Okay, so under D, so I had originally written this as a special permit process, and then Amy and I sat down together and discussed it, and actually she suggested doing site plan approval instead of a special permit process. And I love that. I didn't think that you guys would actually go for that, so I was happy to modify the bylaw for site plan approval. And one of the reasons why I was so gung-ho about that is because usually in zoning, if it's something that you want to encourage, then you want to make it as easy as possible for somebody to do it.
Mm.
And a special permit is inherently discretionary. So what you're telling people is you're saying, maybe I'll let you do it and maybe I won't. So
Right.
you may spend a lot of money on this, and at the end of the day, you may get a no. But when it's a site plan approval, you're saying, I really want you to do this. And as long as you adhere to our regulations, you are going to get a yes.
Mhm.
So that really did make the most sense to me. Now, of course, understand that if somebody's interested in doing an assisted living development or a duplex or a multifamily development, they already have to go through a special permit process for
Right.
that approval. So this doesn't excuse that special permit process. It just says, if you're able to get that special permit, then we're going to make it really easy for you to incorporate affordable housing into your project. But we still want to, have some oversight over it.
And to explain my reasoning, it was like, I thought the purpose of inclusionary zoning was to add houses, affordable houses, to keep over 10%, because we're trying to stay over the 10%. So if we said by special permit, I mean, I feel like this bylaw is asking them to do something above and beyond they probably want to do. So I was questioning why it had to be by special permit, because they probably don't want to do it anyway. So it's like, it didn't make sense to me that that would be by special permit, since it's something we're asking the developer to do. Where usually a special permit is something they're asking us if they can do it. I guess that's what I was.
All right.
I was wondering with D, I was thinking about today. You know how you said, and we did discuss, I had asked Lori, for downtown to have 6 multifamily, you need a special permit. And if it fell under this bylaw, would you still need that special permit? And she said, yes. So I was wondering with D, if we just do make a note that all special permits and variances required have already been granted, or, I just don't want it to be confusing, like say you leave Lori and then the next planner says, well, no, they don't have to get the special permit anymore because they're bumped to this and this says they only need a site plan.
I don't think that's, I think it's clear that they still need that special permit because it says in the zoning bylaw that you need it. So
The zoning bylaw says for site plan that you need to have all your variances, but it doesn't say you need all your special permits. So that's why I just thought somewhere in this bylaw, like if you're gonna get site plan approval, it needs to note that all underlying special permits and variances have been approved. We don't even go to this part until you get the special permits and variances that you need.
normally what happens though is they submit a single application. So if you think about it, they submit one application for multifamily special permit. It also covers groundwater special permit. It also covers site plan approval. So we're getting one application and they're checking multiple blocks. So we can revise the application to read site plan for inclusionary zoning. But yeah, that a part of that is all vetted before you folks even see it. So that's what I'm doing to make sure it's a complete application. And then they
didn't-
get a single decision typically, unless it's a split vote, in which case they would get possibly two different decisions. So they would get, you know, partly an approval decision and partly a denial decision, which has happened, especially with the ZBA.
What I want to make sure, like site plan approval, you can't deny. But if someone say they wanted to do so many units by special permit and it was denied. So if the special permit is denied, then this shouldn't even go forward.
Well, it would be a denial of this at the same time as it's a denial of the multifamily special permit. Because they can't do inclusionary zoning for a project that's been denied.
Right. That's what I was just trying to grasp, that it all goes together. And I know you understand it, but if you ever left and we got somebody else who didn't have the same understanding. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so is there a risk here? It sounds like, Laura, you're saying you don't think there's a risk whether you're here or not.
No, because it very clearly says in the zoning bylaw what triggers a special permit and what doesn't. It's in the table of uses.
So does the board feel like this is a risk, or we're okay where it is, or thoughts on this?
Could you ask Attorney Aikman just to double check, make sure there's no risk? That they can bypass the special permits and just go for this? I wouldn't think they could.
Well,
Yeah,
he
had
has to
things-
review this anyway, so maybe as part of the process, as he's reviewing it, just we throw that question in to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident. Remember, I've been doing this for 22 years. There's no way this bylaw gives them a free pass from the table of uses.
Okay, how do board members feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna come up for attorney review anyways, then just adding in that question shouldn't,
I'd agree with
Sounds like
that.
so we know.
Very unlikely, but while he's looking at it, I don't think it needs to have a special review, but Lori, does he still review this? He's the one who reviews this in the end. We send them all to him. So maybe we just put a little note in there, please confirm this, there's no way to circumvent, and then that'll put minds at ease. Even though we know you're an expert, we try not to underestimate the creativity of our applicants.
Before you were here, there was some creativity.
There's a lot of
now.
creative applications.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then moving right along. So I did put in 15% of the units subject to this section shall be established as affordable dwelling units, and any one of a combination provided above. So when I say subject to this section, so this is the development that triggered this bylaw. So let's say there's 100-unit multifamily development proposed for the playing fields. Then that's what we're talking about. So 15% of the 100 units would have to be affordable. So they can do it in a couple of different ways. They could do it on site. So that means they'd have to build the 15 units within the development itself, or they can do it off-site. So they could purchase a parcel of land, maybe in the downtown area, and they could build those 15 units there, or they could do a combination of the two. So they could do 7 units on site and 8 units off site if they chose. they just would have to specify in their application what they want to do. So that's what this says. So it says that you can do a combination of A and B above.
I think because our numbers changed, that 710070F is now E, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. So let me fix it.
Some of our things we moved around.
Okay, so that's E. So the next sentence says that you're rounding up. And then this
It was
talks
just a
about
question for me. I was just
local,
wondering if it could be anything but local action units, or they're always done that way.
yeah, so when it's voluntary, it's usually considered a local action unit. If it's not voluntary, so it's usually a Chapter 40B or a comprehensive permit, then they don't go under this category. So the state has specified a very detailed process on this LIP program, so the Local Initiative Program. So it specifies all sorts of stuff about how you market the units, how you write a deed restriction, what happens when the units go up for sale. It's a book. And pretty much every community has to follow what's in the book. So the thing that I really like about that, so this language I actually took from our MDOD bylaw, and that was the guidance language that the state wanted us to follow. And the reason why I really like to reference the LIP program is because then it carries with the bylaw that entire book that the state has on their website. And if you're interested, tomorrow I can send you folks a link. And so you can see how comprehensive that guidance is. And you can decide whether you think that that is sufficient. And then number 4, I also took this from our MDOD bylaw. So that is the exact language that came from the guidance document that the state put forward for us to use for the creation of our MDOD bylaw. So number 5, this was language that Amy put in, which I have concerns about. And the reason why I have concerns is that the town does not regulate ownership. So we don't know when a rental property is being converted into condos. The only ones who find out are the assessor's office after it's already been done. So there really isn't a trigger. Like even the building inspector won't know. It's just it's an exercise that the property owner would do with a land use or a real estate attorney. And then they just record the document at the Registry of Deeds. So I am not really aware of a trigger that would capture the conversion of rental housing to ownership housing. So I think it's best just to leave it off.
I only put it in because Westboro just did their bylaw in the fall, and they had that, and they probably have a lot of apartments, so they were probably trying to get their number over 10%. I don't know how they catch it, but they haven't.
All right, so moving on. So local preference. This is pretty much what we've discussed before. We did this with our MDOD. So the state does say how many units you can set aside as a local preference. So that's where the language "to the extent permitted by law" and "to the extent permitted by programs under the jurisdiction of EOHLC, local preference for rental sales, etc., shall be given." So that gives the state, so of course they could change the local preference law at any point. So that covers us so that we won't have to change our bylaw when they change their minds as to how local preference should be dealt with.
Do you think the word development is crossed out by mistake? Like, I don't know. There's nothing with it. It's crossed out. Maybe it somehow got crossed out by mistake.
All right, let me,
It doesn't make sense without it,
yeah, you're
I
right.
think.
Let me put that back in. Okay. So the next section of the bylaw talks about the types of affordable dwelling units. So what I was trying to think about is, say you are in the 80,000 square foot district, the RA district, and you have a 10 lot A&R development. So you're trying to figure out how you are going to do 2 units within this 10 unit single family development of $1 million mansions. So I thought that to be creative, give them a variety of options, especially when you're taking into account how expensive the land is in that district. So it would include detached single-family dwellings. I had provided an option of doing an accessory dwelling unit, but certainly we can cross that off if you want to. Attached single-family dwelling, so that would possibly give you a duplex option where it's ownership on either side. Pretty much the same thing as a 2-family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, assisted living facility, and dwelling units within a mixed-use development. So, of course, I'm trying to think of the gamut of all the different types of housing we have in town that could possibly have either trigger this bylaw or accommodate inclusionary affordable housing within it. So
Took off accessory dwelling unit because the new state laws, they say you can't add an affordability factor to the ADUs. So I thought if we added that in there, it would trigger the state to say, it goes opposite what they're telling us to do with accessory dwelling units. Like you can't throw an SHI on the accessory dwelling units per the state.
yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It may cause a question. As you know, the accessory dwelling bylaw, they're still coming out with guidance. They're still working on a model bylaw. So it's probably the safe thing to delete it. So then we eliminate that question. And then we could always add it later if you want. Any
Yeah, I
thoughts
think
about
that
that?
makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
My only
Okay.
other question, where it says permitted types, if you go back, I would want the permitted types to match what's allowed in the zoning, because I wouldn't want like a neighborhood of single family homes to have a multifamily dwelling on it. So like,
That's when we go down below into the density bonus option. And also I was trying to think of all the various zoning districts we have in town with all the different housing configurations. Like, for example, if you're in the downtown business district, you're allowed to do multifamily dwellings.
Yep.
And certainly mixed use developments and 2-family dwellings. So there are a variety of districts that allow a variety of different things. So this is just saying that these are all of the options that you can do, but you can only modify the type of housing that's allowed under letter A below. So under letter A, so like I said, I'm trying to figure out how we can encourage, because this is something we want. We want to see affordable housing in town. And ideally, we want to see the developer build it in various locations in town. So one way I thought of doing that is to allow up to 20% of the total number of dwelling units within the development to be something other than what's currently allowed. So, okay, let's go back to the example of the RA district. There are 80,000 square foot lots. Say you're doing 10 single family homes. This would allow one to be a duplex. So you could get your 20% of the total number of dwelling units to be something that isn't normally allowed. I see
Duplex
Amy
would
saying-
actually be 2 units, right? So if it was
So it'd be
20
two-
units, you
one
could do a
duplex.
duplex.
So it'd be one duplex with 2 units in it.
And that would be if you had 20, right? That's what, 20 homes? No, 10
So-
home. How many homes did you say?
So if we're doing 10 homes, 10 single family homes,
Mm-hmm.
then it would allow 2 of those units. So there'd be 8 single family homes. 2 of those could be a duplex. 2
Because
units.
15%, it rounds up.
So it rounds up, and here we've capped it at 20%. So it ends up being 2 either way.
My main concern with this, or I have heartache with the density bonus, is I definitely don't want to see like multifamily in a neighborhood. Like, it's okay downtown and it's okay in certain zones, but if it's in a single family district, it's okay, I think, if it's duplexes, cottage dwellings. But if it gets to be like a garden apartment, I feel like it would cause a lot of heartache. Like, I feel like multifamily needs to be in the multifamily zones.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 2 or under, that's fine, like the duplexes. But multifamily is a lot different.
Well, the problem that I have is the value of the 80,000 square foot lot. So the reason why people build $1 million mansions on 80,000 square foot lots is because of the land costs. The land costs are so much. And so this bylaw is saying, okay, now you have to essentially build a house for free and make 0 profit on it, or maybe even lose money, because, we're going to require you to do an inclusionary, you have to put like a little ranch on this property, and they might not be able to make their money back. So what I'm trying to do is increase the density to allow it to be something that they can financially make a profit on. Because honestly, if they can't make any profit, then what's the point? I mean, nobody's gonna work for the next month for free. I
Can't you
wouldn't.
with duplexes? So they could do small duplexes versus a garden apartment. You could do 2 small duplexes versus a garden apartment with 4.
Yeah, so the examples that I provided, and we can make this in like a mandate. So what I said is cottage dwellings, attached single family dwellings, and or 2-family dwellings.
Hmm.
So
Can you go down a little? Can you just scroll down a little? Like what Shrewsbury did was they broke it down by district. So like in the residential, you can have that, but in the downtown, it included the multifamily.
I think that's reasonable.
If everybody else thinks it's okay.
Board members, that sound reasonable?
I think that sounds reasonable to split it up into those areas so that you don't have a mixture of zoning allowances.
I think it reduces the questions.
Yeah.
And I think by spelling it out, it's also more fair to the applicant. So they don't come and they do their design and they come to us and we say, oh, no, we don't want that in a single family neighborhood. Like trying to make it clear so everybody is on the same page. And then they don't waste their time if we're not gonna approve it. The multifamily in a neighborhood. But I mean, duplexes are okay. Just like a garden apartment building would be out of place.
All right. Well, I agree that if folks feel more comfortable doing it that way, I'd be happy to include this language.
Sounds like that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So then the next one is the density bonus. So SPAA, that's Site Plan Approval Authority, may allow the number of market rate dwelling units to be increased by 1/2 of the required number of affordable dwelling unit rounding up. I think we gotta put S there. For example, for a development that must provide 2 affordable dwelling units, 1 additional market rate unit may be allowed on site. And then it says that in order to fit that extra unit, the planning board or whoever the approval authority may vary the density and dimensional requirements to fit it in. So in the case of our 10 units, like I said, in a 10 unit development, you would have 2 affordable units. So this would allow you to have an extra market rate single family home to offset the cost of those 2 affordable units.
So it'd be 11 units total with 2 affordable. So 9 market and 2 affordable.
You got it.
That sound okay to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, you guys are easy tonight. I was expecting a lot more questions.
Yeah.
So moving on. So this is where you are doing your affordable housing somewhere else in town. So say you've got your 10 units of $1 million mansions. So you're doing those in one area of town, and then you have to build 2 affordable units. But you purchase a parcel, say in the center of town, and you decide that you're going to do those there. So there's a little bit less of a density bonus if you decide to do that option, because it's not as desirable as the first option. It's a little bit more complicated. So instead of having half density bonus, this would only give you 1/3 density bonus. Of course, you're still rounding up. So in the case of a 10 unit, it still gives you 1 unit. But if you have a larger development, so for example, for a development that must provide 3 affordable dwelling units, 1 additional market rate unit may be allowed on the locus. So an example of 3 units is, okay. Well, if we go up to 20 units in the development, then that would actually be 4 units. So you would have 1/3. So that would give you 1 extra market rate unit in the case of 20. If I'm doing my math right. Bill, double check me.
Me?
Don't you work in IT? Aren't you supposed to be good at math?
No, that's just zeros and ones. I can add 0 and 1.
Oh, okay. So you guys okay with this? Having it be a third and the other one being a half?
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
I had highlighted the density and dimensional requirements only because with the other towns I looked at, they set limits. Like in your say it's you said 10 housing units up in RA. So you'd need what? They're 80,000 square feet?
I thought that it would be prudent to keep things simple. So already the bylaw is pretty complex and difficult to read. So I thought if it's just negotiated, then you can decide based on the circumstance of the particular parcel what you think is appropriate. So it may be that they have 20 lots and they're making them all of equivalent size, then you guys can decide whether that's appropriate. If they decide that they're just gonna, you know, maybe do a cul-de-sac and there's gonna be 4 or 5 units on the cul-de-sac and they decide to make those the smaller lots, then, you know, that's fine too. So that way you can take it on a case-by-case basis and do what makes the most sense for the specific parcel of land.
The thing for me is it leaves open a whole, like some people said, like the frontage can't go down by more than 10 or 20%, or the lot size can't go down. Because say like this person who wants to do 10 homes in RA, and RA is 80,000 square feet, so they'll need what, 800,000 square feet? But he says, you know what? I'm gonna build affordable, so what if I do it on 400,000 square feet? So now he's cut his lot size in half. Would a board be open to letting him develop on half the lot size that's required? Like, what is the limit? Because then that could get creative developers to say, hey, I'll give you an extra unit, but I want you to cut the lot size in half. And then I just don't want more heartache. I want this to be as black and white as possible. So we don't get a lot of applications where we're saying no and then we're no borough. Or, you know, or there's a lot of heartache and it's hard for the boards and for the applicant. I want it to be, you know, because not everybody thinks along the same lines.
Yeah, I get what you're
But-
saying. It just personally, having worked with a lot of developers over a lot of years, I think it's important to be less rigid and allow developers to be somewhat creative. And when you allow that creativity, in my experience, it ends up with a higher quality design because then they can look at the attributes of the specific parcel. You know, maybe this is a parcel that has scenic resources on it, or maybe it has a lot of wetlands, or maybe it has, you know, certain slopes. So there may be locations where you want to go smaller on the lot sizes because they're upland, you know, there are less constraints. So in that location, you could handle 15,000 square foot lots. When normally the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. And then in another area of land where maybe you have some wetland constraints or you have some open space that you want to protect, then you could go larger on the lots. So
Feel
that's just my perspective.
if we open the door, like there's a lot of creativity here, and I don't feel it goes that way, at least in front of our boards in the last 10 years. Like, I'm not sure we'll get that creativity, but we'll get a loophole where someone tries to squeeze in and it goes against what we were trying to do. but I just wanted to think about it. I looked at 3 other towns and one town didn't allow a density bonus at all. So I think it's good that we're being kind, that we're allowing a density bonus to make it work. And another one that allowed the density bonus actually had a table that said, okay, it's kind of like the duplex bylaw. If you're doing a duplex, this is the frontage and this is the lot size you need. They were like, if you want a density bonus, this is the max or the minimum lot size. I know, I understand the creativity part of it, but I also understand the loopholes too. That when people come in and if you leave it wide open, then that can, would we accept half the lot size?
Yeah,
I
I can
don't
see where
know.
you're both coming from, but I think, to sort of to Lori's point, right, is let's say we limit it to 10% and somebody comes in and they want to, because of the lot, right, it makes more sense to do it, to reduce it to 11%, right? Now they can't do anything, right? Where here, at least with the SPAA approval required, right, we can at least have that conversation. And I think, if we put a number in there, a hard number, that removes the ability for us to even have a conversation about it because, hey, it's 11% and 11% is 11%. And it's not what we put in the bylaw.
Well, maybe the density bonus should be by special permit or by another permit. Because if it's by site plan and we allow a density bonus, then we can't say no.
I just think, already you're asking a lot. Right now there is no inclusionary requirement. So people can just build those $10 million mansions and they get to enjoy all of the profit. Now you're cutting down their profit significantly. And so what's their incentive to build 10 units? I'm just going to build 9 and I'm going to get 100% of the profit. And then that doesn't help us maintain our 40B compliance because now we have all of these developments of 9 units. So I'm thinking if this is something you want affordable units to be built in small incremental areas in town, then you gotta incentivize it to make it happen.
We didn't make it quantitative, then I would go back to special permit. Because if we didn't have the special permit and we had no quantity here, then I would vote no on this at town meeting. And I helped to write it. But
Yeah,
I feel
just
like,
I don't think it's gonna be used.
yeah,
I
But
mean,
there are
if
also,
there's an inherent disadvantage, then it's not gonna be used.
I just think there needs to be something though. I don't think we can have it by site plan and then give it free reign because we can't say no. So someone comes in at 50%. But it's not what we want to do. We can't say no at site plan.
Well, we can say no because it's saying here that we have to approve the
We have
we
to
have to
approve the
approve the
what?
variance. We have to approve the variance. The SPAA has to approve it. So if we don't approve them going down by 50% because we don't see the reason for it, then
It's a site plan, so we can't deny. It can only
well,
condition.
but it says here for the bonus, right? The approval authority may vary the density and dimensional requirements. May. Doesn't say we will, it says we may.
Mhm.
So
Would
that says that we have a conversation about it with the developer.
Would that hold up in court though?
That's the next
Sure.
point. So I think Lori's point is excellent. I think she's absolutely right on that if people can stop at a point and then build one less unit, a house, to get all the profit, they're going to do that. But I also think Amy's got a great point where if it's, shall or not shall, but, may, and we get up and you get into litigation again or can. And so I think both ways has, some threats.
Now too, if you build houses by SHI, don't you get its tax credits? Like all the classes I've gone to with CHAPA, when you do affordable housing, they'll get tax credits.
Well, that's a certain way of financing, like a Chapter 40B development. If you're like your average Joe Schmo developer, then chances are you're not going to pursue those affordable housing tax credits because there's a lot of red tape around that. And, you know, chances are you need to hire an expert to help you negotiate that process. And if we're only talking about one unit, they may not find it worthwhile. But absolutely, that's the way a lot of Chapter 40B developments are built. And, you know, like Habitat for Humanity is a nonprofit, so they can't benefit from tax credits. But there certainly are like Metro West, when they were proposing their affordable housing development at White Cliffs, they expressed that they absolutely intended to use affordable housing tax credits.
Maybe this is another thing that we asked Attorney Aikman about. Because, you know, we're going through it tonight and this is the first time going through it. So when we have our public hearing next month, we can go back to certain things that we have heartache on or questions on.
Do you want me to send these bylaws to John Eichman so that he can provide his feedback at or prior to that public hearing?
That'd be
I think that's
great.
what I did last year.
Sure. Can
Yeah,
I email
that'd
you
be
my
great.
2 questions?
Sure.
You could ask them.
Okay, so going on to the design and performance standards. You know, these are largely the same as what we put into the MDOD bylaw. So essentially what it's saying is that the affordable dwelling units, particularly this applies to like multifamily developments and mixed use developments. They have to be privy to the same standards and access to public space and amenities. And also that the affordable units have to be constructed in line with the market rate units. So, you know, say you have 2 affordable units. One should be built at, say, the 50% mark, and then the other one should be built at the end. It just should keep pace. Okay. So moving right along. Yeah, it just once again says that if they're built in a different location, then they have to take into account the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And then it says no certificate of occupancy shall be issued until everything is completed. So then in red, I've got number 4 and 5 highlighted. So these were Amy's changes. And I had concerns about these suggestions. So the first one is that she would be mandating that 15% of the affordable units must be fully accessible, which I think is a great idea. However, going back to the 10-unit single-family home, so say we're having 2 units that have to be affordable, and if 15% of 2 it has to be fully accessible, it's really kind of limiting for it seems to me that it is yet another disincentive to comply with the bylaw. Like, I think if you're talking about a large multifamily development where they have an elevator or a mixed-use development, then this might make sense. But if you're talking about like a single-family development, you know, what if the units are similar to what we've seen recently with extremely steep slopes. So now we're gonna have a handicap accessible house in the middle of the woods on a 15% grade driveway. It just might not make sense in all circumstances. So I thought that the best way to handle this is once again through conditions of approval. So let's see what the proposal is. Let's see what type of development we're talking about. And then we can negotiate the ADA accessibility as part of a condition of approval.
Yeah, I only put those in because Westboro again did theirs in the fall. And they had that, so I thought it was a good idea, so we threw it on, but you know, it could even be, say, like in a mixed use development with over 30 units, you know, it could.
You could even
Because it-
do, you know, rounded down.
I can see the
Right.
point of not having it on single family homes, but maybe in the mixed use with a lot of units. And actually, when someone brought it up, I don't know when, might have been one of the classes I went to, they said that a lot of developers with these multifamily are doing ADA accessibility anyways, because that's in demand right now. The affordable units being ADA accessible.
And
So-
shortage. That has nothing to do with a state or federal regulation, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I think that makes sense if we want to just limit it to those large developments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the next one, the building inspector may inspect the premises to ensure the developer has complied with these requirements and if necessary, require reasonable changes to achieve compliance. So one of my comments is I didn't understand because of course the building inspector inspects all new units anyway. But then I was thinking about what if there is a circumstance where you have an existing, say, two-family house, and the developer decides that they're going to buy this existing two-family house, and then they're going to put a deed restriction on it and make it affordable. In that circumstance, this makes sense to me because there may not necessarily be a building permit associated with it, because it may just be, you know, just any two-family house that is for sale on realtor.com. And they just decide, hey, you know, I need two units of affordable housing. This house is for sale, so boom. This is my way I'm going to comply with this bylaw. So I'm thinking that we can add some language to this sentence that says, in that circumstance, the building inspector will go in and inspect and make sure that the premises are appropriate. You know, if it's a hoarder house or, you know, in horrific condition, then that probably isn't appropriate compliance with this bylaw.
It
We
came
would
from a
want-
different town, so I added it to ask Bob if it would be something that would help him, you know, because he needs teeth to go in for some reason. Like the town must have put it there for some reason, but I didn't know.
Does he
I
have
actually
any
thought it
to
was
do
giving him
anything?
permission to go in, like, say someone's building and he can tell they're not doing it up to what they're supposed to be doing. Would that give him a right to just go in and,
He's already gonna be doing those inspections
okay.
as part
I
of
didn't
his
know if he
building permit.
did it till the end. I thought it would stop it before it got
No.
too far.
He's doing several inspections throughout the construction process. So I would think that, and even if it's a renovation, then it would be under a building permit. So the only time when I can think of that he wouldn't be triggered is if they just buy a two-family and they do no renovations at all, and they just put a deed restriction on it.
Okay, whatever you think works.
Okay, I'm just putting that note for myself. So that's pretty much it. Any questions or changes you want? Other than
Just a
those,
quick one. You mentioned that a deed restriction would allow them to get around the inspection. Did I understand that correctly?
no, so they wouldn't necessarily have to get an inspection if they didn't pull a building permit. So if they just decided, like, maybe, you know, there are a number of developers who own multifamily units in town. So they just say, I mean, right now, they may just be market rate units. So they say, hey, you know, I own 4 units on Church Street. So these are the ones I'm gonna put a deed restriction on. So I just gave you 4 affordable units. I'm gonna put them on the SHI. So this would enable the building inspector to go in there to look at them and report to the planning board whether he thought that they were in reasonable shape or not.
Okay.
That would be only for ones that they triggered this bylaw for. It's not.
Right.
Mm.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay. Do we need to cover any of our other bylaws? Or are we at a good point with that?
There was the
Do
sign
you wanna
bylaw.
do you wanna do the sign bylaw?
If you want me to. Sure. It
Okay,
really, I
hold on.
mean, we spent a lot of time on it in design review and there aren't major changes. But we went through everything.
Let's see. All right, I got it. So let me share that.
Last year, we decided to do the highway business district and we cut out the downtown district. So this year, we looked at downtown. And we added some definitions. And we added some additional signs. And hopefully people had time to look at it, but I know, like Lori Milbury, you had blade signs, we don't allow them. And we're allowing awning signs. So those are 2 additional signs that we didn't allow before. But a person in a building has to choose. Like originally, it was just a freestanding sign or a freestanding sign and a wall sign. Now it's a freestanding sign, wall sign, blade sign, an awning sign, but it's not a free-for-all. Like you can pick 2 of them. Because even the purpose of the bylaw says, like, if there's too many signs, then it's counterproductive, because then it's just. Originally, it had 2 signs, so it's still 2 signs, but there are more signs allowed to choose from.
So one of the major changes that we made, and we went back and forth a lot on awning signs. And last year, I believe the version that you folks had seen was where we were limiting the awning sign to the skirt of the awning. And after going back and forth, we realized that there are a number of awning signs that or awnings that don't have skirts. And there are some real attractive signs on awnings that are not necessarily on the skirt. So ultimately, the issue we decided was the size of the sign, not necessarily the placement of the sign on the awning itself. So this revision says signs are allowed on 10% of the awning and shall only consist of the name of the establishment, the business logo, and/or address.
So like Neighborhood Tavern has Neighborhood Tavern on the awning, but it's not on the apron.
I think that makes sense because sometimes the aprons aren't big enough to really make much of a sign anyways. From a distance.
Mm. Projecting blade signs we talked about a lot. It's 10 feet high, so what? So the snowplow can get underneath the town snowplow.
So the way it's written today, there's only so much coverage you can put on, regardless of where it goes onto the awning, whether it's the skirt or the awning itself, right? I mean, I think that's the intent we're trying to avoid, is having awnings be like completely printed.
Correct.
And
I
we
just
we
have
don't
a-
allow it right now, so we're allowing it.
I just have a question on something that's up above there, the C2. Way up. Yep, that one right there. So how often does design review meet?
Well, we meet once a month, but we have had months where we've met every week. We're willing to meet when there's a need.
Well, I'm just concerned about the 20 days from receipt of the application, right?
Yep.
If you're meeting monthly and you don't meet, if they send it like the day after your meeting, you're not meeting for another 30 days. So that's gonna automatically be allowed, or at least from design review's point of view.
We could change it to 30 days. I think Bob wanted 20 days, right? Because he said after 30 days, it's automatically allowed anyways.
Right, and so that's my concern, right? Is you're going to have 20 days to give it to Bob. Now Bob has 10 days to do his review, or else it's automatically approved, right? So if
No,
we do you at
it's-
30,
It's the opposite. So they're going to be submitting the sign permit application with Bob. Then Bob is going to refer the application to the design review committee. So they have the option of reviewing it within 20 days. So if they do not complete their review within 20 days, then Bob will issue the approval or not within his 30-day window. So he only has 30 days to act. So he wanted a few days after the design review committee submitted their feedback for him to complete his decision.
okay, and that makes perfect sense. I'm just concerned that, will design review be able to meet before that 20-day time frame, right? And you can't be 30 because you've got to give Bob time to, if you want to make a recommendation, you need Bob to be able to say yes or no.
So far with the layout of our board, we've been able to meet like the next week if I send out an email and everybody's like, okay. Because all of us can meet during the day in any day of the week. With the way the layout of the design review committee is right now.
Yeah, but that's right now, right?
Yeah.
What happens if that changes in a year, right? And
Right.
now, now you're stuck.
Then it
So-
would go back to the way it was, right, with Bob, just doing
Well,
it.
but not according to this, right? And so, if design review wants to meet bi-weekly, then I think then this is fine. But if design review is meeting on a monthly basis, then, again, if design review in a year, things change and people come in and people go out, now you've got people that maybe can't meet as quickly as, they can now.
It says failure to act. So if we fail to act, it just is like how it is today. Bob would just approve it.
Right, but why have something in there? I guess why have a review if, you can't, if there's a potential of not complying with that review?
I mean,
Bob-
groundwater committee used to do it.
Bob sort of, is sort of, sort of sitting there waiting for your review. Right, so he's got to wait at least 20 days before he can even do anything. Because he wants to
was
know
in-
what design review.
Would it help
Well-
if you just changed Bob's to 40 days and yours to 30?
No,
It's a state.
statutory.
Oh.
Bob
Oh,
was at our meetings and he was okay with it. Bob attended our design review meetings when this was being discussed.
Right, and like I said, it makes sense with the makeup of the committee now. But if the committee changes in a year or two, then it may no longer make sense. And now, now you've got a review that isn't happening.
We
I
have
mean,
that
it
in a
may
lot,
happen-
like,
Yeah, it may happen on occasion, but I feel like if you are on design review, you have already it's a known possibility that you may have to meet every week or be available.
And we've only had one in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
So since the bylaw was modified, because it's already in the zoning bylaw, under the design review section. So since that bylaw was amended, there was only one that triggered this exercise, and that application was ultimately withdrawn anyway. So it's because it's only the design at the downtown business district, it's rare that these applications come in.
mhm.
it goes
No,
along with
I-
the downtown revitalization, like some towns do a whole bylaw on downtown revitalization that calls out certain things, so we just started with the signs, so we can review it. Lori will be there, design review will be there.
Yep, no, I completely agree with that. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying, we want to make sure that if we want design review to review it, then, we need that design review to review it. And, right now, as this is written and as, right now, as this is written and as the committee is made up, this works, right? But if that committee makeup changes, so like I said, maybe set the committee up so that you meet every other week. That way you won't
There's-
run into any issues.
But like Lori said, they've only had one of these this whole year, so the board would be meeting every other week for nothing.
But
Like
you
we
can-
meet when there's an application. Once we're done with this sign bylaw and the update of the design review guidelines, we won't meet again until there's an application. That's the way design review was going about before we started doing all this. So we'd hate to meet twice a month for no reason.
But it would seem that you would also be able to cancel if you would know within that 2 weeks whether or not you're gonna meet again,
Mhm.
almost immediately.
But I think it's easier just to make an agenda when there's a meeting versus have
Yep.
it show up and have Lori have to cancel it twice a month.
Yep, and I understand that. I see where you're coming from, Bill, on this. I don't think it's a huge problem.
That way
Okay.
with a lot of things like A&Rs. Sometimes, like if we only have one meeting in the summer, A&Rs we could miss. There are certain things that have only so many days.
Okay, so are we set with, are we making a change here or moving forward?
I think I would leave it.
You want to start at the top, Larry? Does anybody have any questions with any of the definition changes?
Looks good. Okay, anything else here? Okay, anything else to go through on this one?
Only if anybody has questions.
Any other questions or comments?
And again, if people have questions for the public hearing, if you have more questions, if you haven't had time to read it, we can still talk about it.
Can I make one request? I know I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before. Every time I went downtown to, get lunch or something, one of the owners of the buildings or businesses down there were asking me, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Right? Is there any way to like send what our proposals are to them so that they have time to, I mean, I know it's up on the website, right? But just letting them know that there's even a sign bylaw being proposed. They may not be part of town. They're business owners, but they may not live in town. So they may not get the notifications.
I don't think we were talked about that as part of design review, because actually half of the businesses are non-compliant because I don't think they even know a sign by law exists. So we were talking about sending out the sign by law to them, like what it is now, what it's changing. We're actually going to make more people compliant than not. Like we didn't even allow window signs in town until last year. But everybody has window signs. So, but we
Laura, is there
could,
anything you recommend for that? Like a way, have we done that in the past, or is there a mechanism to do that?
Sure. I mean, I could send the public hearing notice to all of the businesses in the downtown business district with the modifications attached, if you'd like me to.
I mean, if it's easy enough to do, it sounds like it may be helpful to just knock out any concerns in advance and let them know if they have any concerns or questions they're welcome to come and join us. Seems sometimes we get tripped up with the PR of it more so than the change.
Okay.
Does that work, Bill? Does that along the lines of what you're thinking there?
Yes. Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
that's-
because at least then we've let them know, right? If they don't come out to a meeting and whatever, then that's on them. But at least we've tried. I would rather over communicate than under communicate.
Yeah, great call. Okay, anything else on this one? No? Okay, any other bylaws to cover?
There was only one change that I made. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I messed that up. Let me make sure I got the right one.
merger doctrine one.
Yeah, I got it. So I'm gonna share again. So this was actually a comment that Bob Frederico made at our design review committee meeting having to do with the merger of lots. So it inspired me to add number 6. So if a new dwelling unit is constructed, then it needs to be permanently restricted to households who qualify as low income. So this is one that I'm interested in having town council review to see if he thinks that this would be allowed by the state. But this could be a neat way to increase our number of affordable housing without taxing the town too much, because of course, normally these single family homes wouldn't be able to be built because of that merger of lots regulation. But now, of course, they're suspending it if the house is built in accordance with these conditions. So why not have the town get a benefit by deed restricting it?
This is
Okay.
one I was kind of against. Just because I think it's 1 in 1, like we talked about the affordability of if there's 10 units and somebody has to build one, then it makes it feasibly impossible. I feel like to ask a owner who's gonna build one house in addition to their other house, and they almost have the amount of lot size needed in the frontage. I feel like that would be more of a detriment, and I feel like the state is trying to, when I read about this, they said the 1850 square feet is to try to build houses for first-time home buyers and the people who can't afford like the bigger homes. But I feel like if we add that they have to have it on the SHI list, I feel like that will, people won't do it then. I feel like if that's added on, that it won't go along with the spirit of what the state's trying to do. And we won't get the people to build them. Because these most likely aren't developers. These are mostly like single family house owners that may now have extra space that they did in the past to build an extra house that they might sell or rent out. But it's not like a big developer that's developing a lot of units. So I feel like this is more of a hardship than the inclusionary zoning, because it's 1-to-1 versus 10-to-1. So I feel it goes against the spirit of what the state's trying to do and get people to do it.
Any other gut reactions to this one? And then maybe we see if town council says it's even viable, or Bill, were you gonna say something? Like you came off mute there.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly what you just said, right? I'd be interested to see what town council says about this. I'm sort of leaning towards what Amy was saying, that, this sort of does go against the inclusionary. But I'd be curious if it's even allowed.
Okay, Millie or Anthony?
I'd agree with town council review.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's see if it's even viable and then talk through it a little bit. No sense in debating it if it's not even something we can do, so. Anything else to cover on these? Lori, does that help you to at least get that far, know that?
Yep, absolutely. That's super helpful. And now I feel comfortable advertising
Great.
for the public hearing at our second meeting in February.
Okay, great. So we obviously have a continued hearing for Reservoir on that night as well. So I guess, and just when you put the timing of it, I think we just did 6 p.m. for that one. So I don't know if that matters or not.
Yep.
Okay, we also have a couple of minutes to review. So we have the meeting minutes from December 11th. That's actually the Economic Development Forum. That was amended. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes for that?
Mhm.
Yep.
Any other amendments to the minutes?
I did not have any.
A motion to accept the December 11th Economic Development Forum minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All right, all in favor, Amy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Bill?
aye.
Millie?
Aye.
Kara's an aye. We also have the minutes from January 7th, also amended. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from January 7th?
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the January 7th meeting minutes as amended?
So
So
moved.
move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, Amy?
Aye.
Anthony? Anthony?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Bill?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Carries an aye. Okay, those meetings are all set. Any subcommittee updates? Bill, how's the survey going?
We had 600 and some odd people within the first 2 days fill out the survey. I don't know what the numbers are right now. The survey is going to end on the 7th of February. So the school has been helping us a great deal as well. They actually put it in their newsletter announcement. So it looks like a good turnout. It'll be really interesting once we start going through some of those numbers.
That's great. Any other subcommittee updates?
Nope, haven't met since last time.
Okay, we have next planning board meetings, the 4th and 18th. We have anything exciting on the ZBA meeting? It sounds like the last application was withdrawn. Was that with or without prejudice?
I haven't read the entire letter, so I'm not sure exactly his wording.
I have a
But
quick-
his intention is to go back to the original approval, so that's 88 units. It would be an assisted living development. The adult daycare is allowed as an accessory use, so he doesn't need that special permit anymore. So yeah, the ZBA wasn't supportive of his modification to the senior living development. So he decided to ultimately withdraw it. There are some changes that came out of that process. There were like site plan modifications that were administrative in nature. So he's gonna provide us with a final plan set, and then he'll be good to go on that project. So
So does this need a use variance then?
he's withdrawing the use variance.
Oh, okay.
So it's just gonna be the assisted living.
Okay. And Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting on March 13th.
I just had a quick question, Lori. Are there any applicants for February for the first week?
For the planning board,
Yeah,
so we just have the gravel pit coming back.
oh, they're coming back to the first meeting in February. Okay.
Okay.
I was
before we- Okay, did you have another question?
Sorry, I was hoping we could skip it.
Unless they continue perhaps in advance, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. I think they were all set to come back for that time at our last meeting.
Yes, I haven't received their modifications yet. So there is a chance that they'll ask for a continuance. I can ask them for an update.
Okay. So also before we motion to adjourn we do have an executive session this evening. As part of that executive session, which I will read, the reasons for moving into executive session. I just wanted to announce that I am unfortunately resigning from the planning board. So I will be leaving Northborough, location TBD, but I won't be eligible to serve on the board. So tonight will be my last night as chair, and just wanted to thank you all. Thank the planning board, other board members, committee members, town staff, residents, applicants. It's been a great honor, and I've really enjoyed working with you all. We've certainly had a lot of interesting times together. I'll say that. So in any case, I think I've sent my letter to Andy Dowd, so there's an official letter with Town Hall at this point. Happy to be a part of any transition or provide information. I won't be a voting member, of course, but if anyone needs to reach out for any, my email account obviously stays with the town, so if there's anything there. Does that just get forwarded, Lori? Would that be forwarded, or I guess accessible at least?
Yeah, I'll have to double check. Of course, I'll speak with the IT folks tomorrow and explain that you had resigned and ask them to forward any email to me so I can direct it to whoever is most appropriate.
Okay, so of course, happy to answer any questions or help with any transition or whatever I can do for sure. So always have Northborough at heart, and you won't see the last of me, hopefully. So in any case, also, I think, Amy, it puts you in the position, I guess, to at least step into chair until we have an election. And then, of course, there's filling the vacancy. Any clarity on filling the vacancy, Laurie? Is that our usual process? What's our usual process look like?
Yeah, so Andy Dowd sent me the process. So it's my understanding that any vacancy on the planning board will be filled by vote, majority vote of the planning board and the select board. So it would be at a joint meeting. So if anybody is interested in this interim position, then they should submit an application form, which you can download from our town webpage. If somebody has trouble finding it, they should contact me, and I'd be happy to direct you to the application. And then, of course, I imagine there would be some meeting scheduled where the applicants, should there be more than one, would have the ability to answer questions from board members. And then the two boards would make that decision, the appointment. So it would be a temporary appointment only to the next election. So Carrie, I believe you were just reelected last year, right?
Correct.
So there's more than 2 years left on your term. So that position would be a 2-year term. So that way we would get back in sync with the normal vacancy schedule.
Okay. So, and do we advertise that so that people can apply, or just?
Yes, I'll speak with the town administrator's office about putting something in the newspaper.
Okay.
Well, Carrie, I want to say we would certainly wish you well and wherever you are next, but we have been honored to have you. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've really, really done a great job as leading this board, I have to say.
Thank you. The first and third Tuesday of the month will be very lonely without
Yeah.
you.
You'll find yourself saying, I need to sit in front of the computer for 5 hours. Where am I gonna do that? Where can I do that?
We're definitely gonna miss you, Carrie. You
I
were
know.
so, you run a great meeting. You're so intelligent and witty, and everything goes so smoothly. It's not gonna be the same without you. I hate to see you go,
Yeah.
but you have done an incredible job,
Thank you.
and you're a great planning board member for the town of Northborough. We'll miss you.
It's been such an honor and a pleasure. So I will miss Northborough as well.
It's a lot of time, and that you put in a lot of time is what really shows. So
Oh,
thank
we
you.
all do for sure. So
And
everyone.
Carrie, I want to add to what we talked about earlier today. I just want to say thank you for welcoming me. I
Oh.
know that I was different than what you were used to, and I really appreciate both you and the entire board being flexible and open-minded about how I do things different from my predecessor, and being kind and welcoming. So thank you.
Oh, good. You're welcome. Lots of great changes in Northborough. So I can't wait to see it all happen. And maybe someday somebody will successfully pass the use variance bylaw that I.
We'll be speaking through the ghost of Gary Martnick.
Okay, with that, we're going to adjourn to executive session. This is an executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3, litigation for the purpose of approving and releasing executive session minutes from pending litigation. The Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Number 21, MISC 000380. The Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000046. Isomedics Operations Incorporated, doing business as Staris AST versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Case Number 21, MISC 000436. And Abu Construction Inc. and KA Realty Inc. versus Town of Northborough, Northborough Planning Board, Worcester Superior Court Civil Action Number 1985 CV 00178. Due to the chair's determination that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the planning board and or the town, minutes to be considered for approval are dated October 3rd, 2023, June 18th, 2024, July 16th, 2024, August 20th, 2024. Approved executive session meeting minutes to be considered for release are dated March 1st, 2022, April 19th, 2022, April 28th, 2022, May 2nd, 2022, September 20th, 2022, November 15th, 2022, September 19th, 2023, March 4th, 2024, and March 25th, 2024. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session under those circumstances relayed?
So moved.
Move.
Second?
We all move and second it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Lily,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Please note that we do have a separate link to log into executive session. I think that's correct, Laurie. We have a separate link.
That's correct. It
Okay.
came from Michelle earlier today.
Okay, so this concludes the public session of the planning board meeting. Good night. Thanks for joining.
Good night.
Good night.